Hello and welcome to the Dr. Julia Sen Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm Dr. Julia Sen, and today I'm going to be talking to Kelly Horton. Kelly is a nutritionist and the Director of Content Nutrition, and she's based in Worcestershire. Kelly, welcome to the clinic.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you for having me.
Now, I'm really excited to have you here because nutrition is something that I am really evangelical about, and I think it's so important. And we've been receiving very mixed messages over the last few decades about what we should and shouldn't be eating. And I think the message has been changing as the science has been evolving. So I'm really excited about what you'll be able to tell us about the current research and where we stand on nutrition. So first of all, in order to be a nutritionist, tell us about the kind of qualifications and postgraduate education you need to do that.
So I have a master's degree in nutritional and lifestyle therapy from the University of Worcester. I followed that pathway because I just wanted to go down the university route, and I did the master's because I wanted to do the dissertation as well. There are other pathways you can take. There's lots of organisations out there when you can get a nutritional qualification. But I'm happy with the choice that I made at Worcester. It was a great course. I feel like it set me up with enough knowledge to kind of build my own business and hopefully help other people with what I've learned.
And before we dive into nutrition, I just wanted to touch on the fact that this has been a relatively recent change in your life, hasn't it? And I think your story of how you got here is really interesting. So tell us.
My background is in dental hygiene. I've been a dental hygienist for 27 years. Prior to that, I was a dental nurse. So in total, I've been in dentistry for 35 years. I'd always been interested in nutrition, particularly when some research came out regarding the impact of nutrition on gum disease. During the pandemic, like a lot of us, I was reflecting on my work-life balance. The dentistry had to close its doors for 6 months to routine care. And during that time, one of the practices that I worked at, I lost the days that I worked with them. So that prompted me to look at other careers, really. I'd been in dentistry a long time. I was looking for new challenges. I knew that I wanted to work in health. I knew that I wanted to work with people and I wanted to run my own business. So I researched nutrition. I'd always had an interest in it because there was links between gum disease and nutrition. And it just so happened that the Worcester University course, the days that ran were the days that I was now free. So it was like it was meant to be. So I went for the interview, met the criteria, and I guess the rest is history.
Yeah. That's so lovely, because I think lots of people kind of they do something for a very long time, they get to midlife, and then you have this realization that you may have another decade or so to work, and you've maybe got everything you could get from the current job that you're doing, and you've got so much more to give. And I think it's really inspirational that you took what appeared to be a relatively adverse situation of losing some of your work and kind of used that to power you into something completely different that you were interested in, that you could help other people in a different way from how you've been doing it. So I think that's a really lovely story. So with the clients that you work with now, what are the sort of the main things that they're struggling with that they are coming to you for help with?
I see a lot of women, midlife women, that are looking for support. A lot of issues that they're dealing with that they're no longer able to lose, whereas previously it was relatively easy for them to lose weight. Digestive problems, bloating, tiredness, stress. Lots of ladies talking about how they feel overwhelmed. They're juggling lots of balls, spinning lots of plates, really struggling to manage their stress levels. And I'd say that's a good proportion of the clients that I'm seeing at the moment.
So how would you say that the changes that you make impact? What do you counsel them about? How do you go about the journey that you go on with them?
I educate them as to why they're gaining the weight. It tends to be more around the tummy area. So I educate them why that's happening, because a lot of ladies come to me feeling that they're not doing something right, they're failing. So I educate them in that they're not failing, it's just that their body's changed, so therefore they have to change a little bit. And because they're very stressed and time poor as well, they're reaching for lots of convenient food, lots of ultra-processed foods that are kind of high in sugar, high in saturated fats and artificial ingredients. So it's re-educating the ladies that I'm working with about how they can make just small changes to their diet and lifestyle, and it makes a big impact. So it can be things like even hydration, often balancing blood sugars is a biggie. Mm-hmm. We do things like swapping their refined carbohydrates. So they're things like your white bread, white pasta, white rice and confectionery and things like that. So we talk about swapping that for more refined carbohydrates, which is your whole grains and things. And about combining, each time they eat, combining their other foodstuffs with protein. Because what protein does, it helps to balance those blood sugars. And I talk to them about building a balanced plate, which is surprising how not many people know what a balanced plate is.
Can you explain what a balanced plate is?
Of course. So half of your plate needs to be non-starchy vegetables. So that's things like your salad and mushrooms, peppers, onions, courgettes and things like that. And that will give you lots of fibre and lots of plants which are packed with nutrients. So that needs to be half of your plate. A quarter of your plate wants to be lean, good quality protein. So that'll be things like poultry, fish, lean red meat, plant proteins such as tofu or beans, lentils and things like that. And then the remaining quarter, I split that into halves, and half of that wants to be healthy fats. So that can be things like avocado or olive oil or oily fish, or nuts and seeds. They're a really good source of kind of healthy fats such as omega-3. And the other kind of part of that remaining quarter, so an eighth, is your complex carbohydrates. So that's things like your brown rice, your sweet potatoes, your kind of whole wheat pasta and things like that. So you're just changing the percentages of the foodstuffs that you're having on your plate, and that will help you balance your blood sugars, which will really help fatigue, kind of weight gain, and that's a really good starting point that I tend to work on.
It's interesting that they are still in there, just a much smaller proportion than most people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'd also be interested in your stance on protein, because everybody seems to be obsessed with protein right now. And I'm really not sure about the fact that we should be eating quite as much as some authorities say we should. So what's your advice on protein intake? Protein
has lots of benefits for us. So one of the first things it will do, it will help balance those blood sugars. So it's the carbohydrates which spike your blood sugars. So protein helps to kind of keep those blood sugars in balance. Also, as we get older, we lose muscle, and muscle is made of protein. And because muscle burns more calories than fat, as we get older, because we're losing muscle mass, that can be a reason for weight gain. So that's another reason why protein is really important as we get older. What I tend to tell my ladies is that you want to be aiming for about 0.75 to 1 gram of protein per kilogram of your body weight. So, for example, if you were 60 kilograms, you'd be wanting to go for 45 grams to 60 grams of protein a day. If you're doing strength training, kind of lifting weights and things like that, you might want to increase your protein intake. But I agree that you don't want to go overboard with it as well. So again, it's getting that balance. It's getting that balance right.
The grams per kilogram, I think that sounds very achievable. You know, I've heard other authorities quote much higher amounts, and that's actually quite hard to achieve.
It is hard to achieve. And then I think that forces people to start looking at things like protein powders and things like that.
Ultra-processed.
Which are all ultra-processed. So, you know, I really advocate for as much as possible going for a whole food diet. So I think if you're, you know, if if you're having to reach for a lot of protein powders and things like that, then it's not something that I personally would want to do. Not saying that I haven't used protein powders, in a smoothie or something like that, but if you're being told to eat lots and lots of protein, it's really difficult to get that in diet alone.
Yeah, I agree. Now, you mentioned menopause and some of the effects that has, but I understand that menopause can also have quite a significant impact on the gut microbiome, which we're finding is more and more important in terms of lots of different aspects of general health. So how do you count, and you have a lot of ladies in midlife, how do you counsel them about their microbiome and the changes in midlife and what to do about that?
During kind of midlife, as our estrogen levels start to fluctuate, that can influence the type of bacteria that we have in our gut. And lower estrogen can give rise to more pathogenic bacteria in our gut. So it's really important to look after our gut health. So there are a number of things that we can do. Balancing the blood sugars will definitely help as well. So increasing plant foods is really helpful, because what that will do, plant foods are very high in fibre. So fibre helps to feed the good gut bacteria, and they produce lots of anti-inflammatory products, things called short-chain fatty acids as well. They help keep the gut lining nice and healthy and secure, drinking plenty of water as well. Again, avoiding those ultra-processed foods, because they'll give rise to the bad and overgrowth of that bad bacteria, and kind of, again, following that whole food diet. But gut health really is kind of the cornerstone of health, really. So it is really important to kind of look after our gut microbiome, particularly as we get older.
One of the gut microbiome roles is serotonin production.
Yes.
And so presumably when you're working with your ladies and they start to shift and focus more on those sorts of things, that must have a positive impact on their mood.
It does, because I think it's between 70 and 90% of serotonin is made in the gut. And serotonin is our kind of happy, kind of calming hormone. And it's made by the good gut bacteria. So if we haven't got enough of that good gut bacteria to do that, and we've got low serotonin levels, that is going to affect our mood, make us feel really low, make us feel quite anxious as well. So it's vital, to look after that gut microbiome to kind of keep our mood happy. And even, not just midlife women, people of both genders and in any age. So absolutely, kind of looking after our gut will keep our brain happy, will keep our mood balanced.
I do wonder, I don't know what you think about this, but this what appears to be a bit of an epidemic in mental health going on in the sort of 20-somethings at the moment. I do wonder how much of this is influenced by diet. What's your feeling about that?
There's a huge increase in ultra-processed food consumption and sugar.
So ultra-processed, how do you define that when you're trying to tell your clients about how to spot an ultra-processed food? How would you define that?
So I always say to look on the ingredient list. If it's a long list of ingredients, particularly if it's more than 5 ingredients, that's erring towards an ultra-processed food. If you see ingredients on that list that you wouldn't find in your kitchen, it's likely to be an ultra-processed food. And so they're the things that you want to kind of restrict. Even bread, white bread is a really quite highly processed food. So it's kind of checking those ingredients, look for how many ingredients are there, and would you find those ingredients in your kitchen cupboard? If you wouldn't, it would indicate that's more likely to be an ultra-processed food. And they tend to be high in sugar. And what sugar does, one of the many things that sugar does, it's a stimulant. So it can, along with caffeine and alcohol as well, actually, what they can do is they can stimulate the fear centre in our brain, and that makes us feel anxious. So kind of restricting those kind of foodstuffs will have a beneficial effect in our feelings of anxiety as well, along with other things, lifestyle and things as well. That is just one of the things you can do, and unfortunately the negative impact that sugar and ultra-processed foods can have.
We've talked about the gut microbiome. We don't always necessarily think about our mouth as being part of our gut, but it is, of course. Just talk to me a little bit about the dangers of oral microbiome dysfunction or dysregulation.
Okay. So the research on the oral microbiome, it's still emerging, really. I think the recent evidence that I read suggested that, because there was some talk about kind of probiotic lozenges and things like that, but the recent evidence suggested that they don't appear to help a huge amount, because the mouth is in direct contact with the external environment, and we're kind of talking and kind of breathing and eating and brushing our teeth and things. So it's difficult to put a probiotic in there which causes any sustained effect. That may change as new evidence comes to light. But plaque bacteria, if it's left around the teeth and gums for long enough, what that will do, it'll cause microscopic ulcerations in the gum tissue. And that's when you get bleeding gums due to those microscopic ulcerations. But what that then does, those little ulcerations then allow whatever goes in your mouth direct access to your bloodstream. And that can then kind of lead to systemic inflammation, not just kind of inflammation within the oral cavity. So gum disease is an inflammatory disease. So if you have gum disease, you will have inflammation throughout your body as well. It doesn't just stay in the mouth. And there's also evidence now regarding research is showing that we're finding plaque bacteria in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease, a bacteria called Porphyromonas gingivalis, which is one of the pathogenic plaque bacteria. And we're finding that in those kind of amyloid plaques in brain tissue from Alzheimer's disease patients. So there's that association now between gum disease and Alzheimer's disease.
Really, it's scary and it's fascinating. But again, it might explain why we're seeing so much more of this, because if our diet has changed and we're eating a lot more sugar and we've got poorer oral health, and then our body's then exposed to pathogenic bacteria getting in and then finding its place within the brain, it all kind of makes sense as to, it's no longer so much of a mystery if the science does it end up confirming that.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a very good reason to floss every day.
Absolutely. It's definitely. I mean, there's already established links between gum disease and uncontrolled diabetes and heart disease. So, years ago, we just used to think that gum disease was stopped in the mouth, but it does affect the rest of your body. So, even more reason to make sure that you're brushing and flossing thoroughly every day.
You need to see a dental hygiene regularly. And floss every day. Okay, so let's talk about oral hygiene then. So mouthwashes and toothpaste and brushing. So what are your stance on all of those?
Okay, so brushing, obviously that's the cornerstone of your oral health. I tend to recommend a particular power toothbrush because it's backed by really strong evidence that it reduces plaque more effectively, it reduces bleeding.
And this is the rotational.
This is the oscillating rotating brand, very well-known brand.
Yes.
And I would say over 90% of my patients use that toothbrush now.
So that's how much authority you have.
They do listen to me sometimes.
Lovely.
Not quite so good with the flossing though sometimes, but twice daily brushing with that. Incidental cleaning, and that means getting in between the gaps of your teeth. So brushing will clean kind of the fronts, the backs, and the biting surfaces, but it won't clean those gaps. So you need to be looking at things like interdental brushes or dental floss or tape, and that needs to be carried out every day in addition to your brushing.
Before or after?
Before, because if you have nice clean gaps, then when you put your toothpaste onto your toothbrush, the toothpaste then can flow in between those nice clean. But sometimes I'm just happy that patients are flossing. Really.
Absolutely, yes. It's small victories, isn't it? And the type and amount of toothpaste that we use, because I know that toothpaste, actually regular toothpaste that we buy in the supermarkets and chemists, actually contains some quite nasty things that we probably shouldn't be swallowing. So should we restrict the amount of toothpaste that we use on our brush, particularly maybe in our children?
Yes. So for young children, you want to use a child's formulation toothpaste because that's got less fluoride in it, and you just need a smear of toothpaste on their brush. That's all. And obviously, you're brushing the younger children's teeth, and you want to be supervising your children's brush until they're around about 8 years old as well. As you get older, you then move on to a pea-sized amount of
So what age would that be?
Again, around about 8 years old. And then for adults, you just want to kind of that kind of round-headed toothbrush, that would fit a pea-sized amount of toothpaste on that. If you're using a manual toothbrush, again, just kind of squeeze to cover the head of that toothbrush. With regards to fluoride, obviously there's quite a lot of controversy around fluoride. From my hygienist point of view, I am pro-fluoride because I know that it does help my patients kind of manage their decay rates, but I do understand some people are worried about it. What I would say is that fluoride in toothpaste, the amount is very tightly regulated in the UK. Some parts of the UK, we do have fluoride in our water supply. Again, it's very tightly regulated. It's unlikely that you're going to reach toxic levels with fluoride in your body. It does have a cumulative effect. It does stay in your teeth and stay in your bones, which is why it's so good at preventing dental caries. But I do have patients that want to go fluoride free, which is absolutely fine. You have to respect your patient's choices. There's quite a few emerging toothpaste now that have got hydroxyapatite in, and that is the natural building blocks of enamel. So some patients are moving on to those types of toothpaste now.
Does it get absorbed? Because it's one thing to be brushing it. I've seen those toothpaste, but is there evidence that it actually gets incorporated?
Fluoride becomes incorporated into the tooth structure, and the hydroxyapatite will as well. But the difference is when fluoride becomes incorporated into the tooth structure, it becomes fluorapatite, which is really strong and it's really resistant to decay. And this is me thinking now, if you were using a hydroxyapatite toothpaste, you may not be getting the strength that fluoride's giving you. So you just need to make sure that your sugar levels are low, because if you're using a non-fluoridated toothpaste and you're having a lot of sugar, you're kind of increasing your risk of decay.
The last thing I really wanted to ask you about is supplements. Because the supplements industry is worth multi-millions. And often it's actually people that have very good diets that just want to make sure that we're getting everything that we need. And so we're investing in supplements. And I think the quality of the supplement and maybe even the safety can be quite variable. How do you approach advice about supplements with your patients?
You're absolutely right. It's a really varied market, and there is a place for supplements, in my opinion. We'd like to think that we could get all our nutrients from kind of a healthy whole food diet, and most healthy people can. Something to be aware of, though, is that the soil quality compared to some decades ago is not quite as nutrient rich, which then impacts the nutrients in the plant foods that are being grown in it. And some people might be nutrient deficient in a particular nutrient. For example, if you're undergoing a lot of stress, you will be burning through lots of nutrients like magnesium, for example. So during stressful periods, it might be helpful for you to take a particular magnesium supplement. There's lots of different types of magnesium just to help you, because your body's going to be using a lot of it. I wouldn't want anybody using supplements on a long-term basis. It's kind of a short to medium-term answer, really. Also, some people have genetic mutations, which means they can't absorb certain nutrients. So, for example, there's a biochemical process that happens in our body called methylation. It's a critical part of health and well-being. And it's like putting a stamp on a letter. And the letters that have got a stamp on, they can be delivered to the right place. So methylation puts a stamp on a nutrient so it can be delivered to the right place in the body. And some people haven't got the right gene to put that stamp on. So they will need to take, for example, methylated B vitamins. The methyl group is the stamp, if you like. So methylated B vitamins are supplements that have already had that methyl group added. And that work really well for these people that haven't got that, or that they've got that genetic variation. So for things like that, supplements can work really well. Vitamin D is a hot topic as well, isn't it? Vitamin D mostly comes from the sunshine. However, it's always lovely today, but often we don't get a lot of sunshine in the UK. So I think the advice from Public Health England is for UK residents to take between the months of October to April to take a vitamin D supplement. But some people may need to take a vitamin D supplement throughout the year. So, for example, autoimmune conditions, multiple sclerosis, for example, there's some associations between low vitamin D and MS. So your neurologist might tell you to take vitamin D throughout the year. People that are housebound and don't get out in the sunshine might need to take a vitamin D supplement. Or people that don't expose their skin to the sunshine for whatever reason, they may need a vitamin D supplement. So
darker skin types.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Those patients too. So there is a place for supplements in the market, but it's very specific. And I'd always say seek advice from either a nutritionist or a healthcare provider. Don't just willy-nilly start taking supplements, because vitamin D, for example, that can build up in your body. So it's always best to test levels first to see if you need the supplement rather than just going and buying a vitamin D supplement.
We do testing, we do blood testing in the clinic. And vitamin D is one of the tests that we offer, amongst many other blood tests that would normally be available via GPs. So I agree, it's worth not just going in blind and just taking what you think maybe you ought to take. It's worth seeking advice about that, getting levels done.
And a lot of the supplements that you get on the high street, for example, that tend to be the cheaper end of the supplement range, they can contain lots of excipients such as fillers and binders and preservatives and things like that, which we don't really want to be taking. And often they use inorganic compounds which are not as absorbable in our body compared to organic compounds. So a lot of the professional brands, they are more expensive, but they're more expensive for a reason. They've got lots of research behind them that, they're good quality nutrients within those supplements. So that's why there's a difference in kind of high street brands and the professional brands. Not all supplements are the same, unfortunately. But I would say it's really important to follow a health care provider's advice before you start introducing supplements into your diet, definitely.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Kelly.
You're very welcome.
Quite a lot of...
We have, haven't we, really? I could have gone on and on.
There's so much knowledge. So I'm sure we'd love to have you back and we'll talk again.
I'd love to come back too. Thank you.
Kelly, your website is Content Nutrition.
Contentnutrition.co.uk.
That's great. And you are also on the Ask Wise Women website.
I am, yes.
That's askwisewomen.co.uk. And you do online consultations as well as, mainly online consultations.
Yeah, most of my one-on-one clients are online, which means that I can see people from all over the world. Not that I haven't got any clients outside of the UK, but I could. And it means people haven't got to worry about getting to me and parking and things like that. So yeah, one-on-one clients. And I also have a phone call first so that we can establish, if I can help the clients. If I can't, I'll refer them to somebody that may be more suitable for them. And then going forward, the consultations are online via Zoom or other software packages.
That's fantastic. I really do believe that food is medicine, medicine is food. And I think now that we're developing a better understanding of that, I think nutritionists like yourself are going to be perceived in such a value, such a valuable asset. And as all the evidence keeps emerging as well, we're going to find out all sorts of incredible things, ways that people can avoid becoming chronically ill and dying prematurely or having terrible diseases like Alzheimer's and autoimmune diseases, for example. If they, from an early stage, ideally work out that their diet's such a big influence in that.
Absolutely.
And dental health, of course.
Yeah, and so it's all linked. Kind of like your oral health is linked to your systemic health, and you're not separate parts. No, everything's linked together. So it's all really important.
So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, Julie. It's been lovely to come and talk to you. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank Kelly for talking to me today. If you've enjoyed the podcast, then please go to my video channel or via my website, drjuliasen.co.uk, to find other podcasts. And you can hit the subscribe button so that you can be the first to watch our future podcasts. Thanks for watching.